Welcome back to our summary study of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta by Sanatana Goswami. So we're in chapter 6 and part 2. It's the second half of this chapter. And Gopa-kumāra has made it to Goloka, and he's met Krishna, and he's spent the first 24 hours with Krishna, out to the pasturing grounds, going to his house and eating with him. And now he continues to talk to the Mathura Brahmin about his experiences that he has here in Goloka Vrindavan. O Brahmin, the satisfaction and ecstasy one tastes from living in Goloka Vrindavan are beyond describing. To what can they be compared? So the residents of Vaikuntha taste a happiness much greater than liberated souls. The happiness of souls that reside in a place like Ayodhya and Dwarka are even greater. But the happiness of the residents of Goloka exceeds all others. Now he starts a discussion here about the incarnations, avatars, the expansions of the devotees. Now you got a little bit of this from Narada Muni in Vaikuntha. It says, just as the Devotees who have entered the material creation are counterparts of Lord Vaikuntha associates, those eternal associates from Vaikuntha are incarnations of the Goloka devotees. Yet like the Devas themselves, those very devotees appear on earth now, and again for the pleasure of Lord Vishnu, when he wants to enjoy various pastimes. Sanatana Goswami, in his commentary, he unpacks this a little bit. He says that the associates of the Lord of Vaikuntha are avatars of the Goloka associates. Now the following should be considered. The avatar of Nanda, the eternal associate of Goloka, is an eternal associate called Nanda in Vaikuntha. Among the Devatas, he became the Vasu called Drona. Nanda also appears sometimes on earth as avatar in the form of Nanda. Here's a few examples. Sanatana is given how first Nanda, he expands himself with Krishna and Balaram. When Balaram expands to Vaikuntha, and then when the expansions come to earth, they come to earth. Now also here's the example of Balaram in Goloka. Balaram exists. He is the eternal associate called Sesha in Vaikuntha. Among the Devatas, he is the holder of the earth, dwelling in the seventh lower planet. And sometimes he appears on earth as Balaram. Another example is in Goloka, Sridham exists. In Vaikuntha, he is the eternal associate Garuda. Among the Devatas, he is the son of Vinata, Garuda. On earth, sometimes he appears as Sridham, so then he comes back again as Sridham. Another one, in Goloka, Vasudeva and Devaki exist. In Vaikuntha, they are Sutapa and Prishni. Among the Devatas, they are Kashyapa and Aditi. On earth, they sometimes appear again as Vasudeva and Devaki. These are sometimes called expansions, counterparts, reflections, shadows of their original personalities. Now he expresses some of the feelings of Gopa-kumāra. He says, every one of the millions of residents of Goloka thinks, I am alone, am the most dear to Krishna. Their actions toward him and his towards them confirms this. But it is toward the millions and millions of gopis that Krishna shows the greatest attachment. And there in one gopi that Krishna shows special love. None of the gopis even imagines that she is the dearest. Each think, when will I be fortunate enough to become even the lowest maidservant of Krishna? We see a little bit more about this utter humility that Narada Muni was explaining to Gopa-kumāra back in Dwarka. Even like the cowherd boys, we can read in Srimad Bhagavatam, how when they enter the forest, they play and say, oh, I'll be the first to touch Krishna. No, I will touch him first. When they're having lunch and they're all sitting around in a circle, each one of them's thinking that Krishna is looking at me. The gopis here are higher in their ecstasy and their love and their mercy from Krishna. And they're thinking, as we just mentioned here, when will I become the lowest maidservant of Krishna? Now he starts talking about some of the pastimes that he has seen while at Goloka. Some of these pastimes are reoccurring pastimes. Some of them are similar than the ones we read in Srimad Bhagavatam. First is the story of Kaliya. It says, one day, while playing on the shore of the Yamuna, Lord Krishna, Nanda heard that Kaliya had come back to this lake. Krishna quickly rushed and dived into this lake. Krishna played in the water, making all sorts of noise. Kaliya came, and Krishna allowed himself to be enveloped into Kaliya's coils. His companions noticed that he was gone, and so therefore they followed his footsteps till they reached this lake and saw that he was in the coils of the Kaliya. And they all fainted, and they all were in complete anxiety. And as more people came, like the gopis, they all saw what was going on, and they all fainted. And at one point, one old gentleman, he went back to the village of Nanda, and he informed everyone about the great calamity that Krishna was in. But Balaram immediately calmed everybody down. He says, no way Krishna is in any kind of danger. He understands there's no kind of danger, or nobody can overcome the power that Krishna has. He was even able to settle Rohini down and said, no, you should stay here and you should prepare something to eat for Krishna, because we will be back very soon. He was able to convince her in this way. And so when they all reached the lake, one by one, each saw the situation that Krishna was in, and they all fainted. And then Balaram addressed Krishna. He says that, my merciful Krishna, please give up this game before these devotees die. Otherwise, O Krishna, sole friend of the cowherds, your gentle heart will come to grief. So Sarup continues to say, the gopis cried and lamented in so many ways, their limbs in terrible pain, their hearts shattered by sorrow. They fainted and fainted. And as if they were go to the side of the lake and themselves wanted to enter and jump into the lake. And then suddenly Krishna freed himself from Kaliya, and he climbed up on the serpents' heads, and he started to dance. And then one by one, he brought the gopis up on top of Kaliya's hoods, and he danced with the gopis on top of Kaliya. At one point, we also mentioned that Yoga Maya kept them from seeing Krishna dancing with the gopis. Some of the scenes they were able to witness, Krishna, he grabbed the shawls of the Nagapatis, and he tied them together, and he strung them through all the noses of the Kaliya, all his different hoods. And he made a rain out of that, and he held it with his left hand. And with his right hand, he played the flute. And as he played the flute, he made Kaliya go all around the lake and with the gopis. And then at one point, he finally, together with the gopis, he got off of Kaliya and sent Kaliya away. They all at that time had a great festival, seeing that Krishna was not in danger. And very soon they forget these pastimes because they're so absorbed in love with Krishna. And another pastime, Gopa-kumāra explains to this Mathura Brahmin, he said, once two great demons, Kṛṣṇa and Arista, came to Raja, and they were favorite servants of Kamsa. The two assumed the form of a huge horse and a bull. Krishna kicked Kṛṣṇa away very quickly, immediately, and then Arista, Sura the bull, he grabbed him and put a ring through his nose and brought him under control, and then brought him to Lord Shiva. And then Kṛṣṇa came back, and Krishna was able to grab him and mount him and ride him and tame him and bring him under control and ride him this way and make him move this way. And then he would bring his friends and let them come up on the horse, and this way they would play. And he would keep the horse around for entertainment. And then another pastime is when Akrura, he comes. Even in Goloka Vrindavan, these pastimes happen. Each one has a little bit different taste. Whereas Krishna doesn't kill Arista the bull or Kṛṣṇa, he tames them. So the outcome is just slightly different. So one day, while Krishna was living in the town of Nandeshvara, Akrura came on Kamsa's order to take Krishna back to Mathura. When the residents heard the news, they cried and fainted again and again. Akrura convinced Nanda with so many arguments that Krishna needed to go with him. Mother Yasoda, at first she hid Krishna behind a curtain. This happened overnight. Akrura came late, and then overnight this discussion, he was able to convince Nanda that he had to take Krishna back with him. So Yasoda, the next day she comes and she brings Krishna out, and she places Krishna's hand into Nanda's hand. And she tells Nanda, bring back my son, and then place his hand back into my hand. Having made that arrangement, the faithful wife Yasoda, so pained by the weight of affection for her son, that she fainted again and again and returned without Krishna to her lonely home. A great lament then arose from the women of Raja. This crying, this extreme sorrow, this insufferable pain made everyone else cry as well. Akrura, Nanda, Balaram, and the cowherds, and even the beloved Krishna, who mounted Akrura's chariot, all the residents of Raja became bewildered. After a moment, Krishna, the life and soul of the young gopis, came to his senses. He saw the gopis apparently on the verge of death, and he jumped down from the fine chariot to revive them. Surrounded by them and unseen by others, they all went into the forest. Akrura described to Balaram how agonized Devaki and Vasudeva were. And they went to the woods to look for Krishna. And they found him surrounded by the gopis. And Akrura cheerfully spoke. His mission is to bring Krishna back to Mathura. Akrura said, evil Kamsa unceasingly harasses your old parents. Sword held high, he is ready to kill them. Surely you should not neglect them, your devotees, so burdened by fear, sorrow, and pain. Akrura, taking a blade of grass in his mouth, addressed the gopis. Krishna's parents are imprisoned by Kamsa. Please help rescue them. But the gopis immediately reject this and say, no. They said that Krishna is the son of Nanda and Yasoda. He's not the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. So when Krishna heard the wicked deeds of Kamsa, thinking he had caused misery to his relatives, seeing that Balaram had agreed with Akrura, then he spoke to the gopis. He apologized to them. And then he left that grove. When the gopis understood that Krishna was about to leave for the city, they fixed their eyes on his lotus face in dread of imminent fire, of separation. They cried and spoke to Krishna, falling at his lotus feet. We cannot live without you for a moment. We have no other shelter. Do not abandon us, your maidservants. Without you, surely we will die. When you go to the forest with your friends, we manage to get through the day by holding on to the hope that in the evening you will return. If you go far away, how shall we ever be able to live? So Krishna, the Supreme Lord, somehow steadied himself, wiping the tears from his own eyes and from the choked eyes of the gopis. He spoke with a voice choked with feeling. The Lord said, "My enemy Kṛṣṇa is certainly weak. With no effort I shall dispose of him. Consider me practically returned to you already. My dear friends, please don't create misfortune by crying." Nanda was able to console Yasoda by saying, "Very quickly I will return with Krishna." And Yasoda then was able to console the gopis. And the cowherd men, they all mounted their carts, and Akrura started to drive in his chariot. And he quickly drove the chariot away, swerving to avoid the animals and the cowherd women who had fallen on the path here and there. Then Swarup said Krishna went to Madhupuri, where he pleased all the residents. He killed Kṛṣṇa and his followers, and he delivered his own parents. He installed Kṛṣṇa's, Kṛṣṇa's father, back on the throne, and he brought the Yadavas all back from their hiding places in different locations. He consoled all the people in the city. And then Krishna requested Nanda to quickly go back home before the residents die in our absence. But Nanda said, "Please don't send me back without you." And then Vasudeva, he spoke up. He was a little bit worried that Krishna might go back right away. He said, "Now's the time for Krishna to get his initiation. And it's also time for him to get educated. So let's do that first, and then he can return after that." Obeying Krishna's desire, Nanda and the other cowherd men, they all went back to Vraja. And when Vrajavasis heard that Nanda had arrived, they all came out and greeted him with joy. But Nanda, however, overcome with sorrow and shame, covered his face with his cloth, and he went in the house. He lay there on the ground and cried most miserably. Krishna's mother cried, "Alas, alas, alas, alas!" And the other women cried out too, all in great pain. How can one speak about the state they were in? Sri Swarup, he said that when Krishna heard from a reliable person that the heavy sorrow the Vrajavasis felt could never be removed by any other means, he fully explained this state of affairs to the people of Mathura, and controlled by the love of his dearest devotees, he soon went back to Vraja. The fullness of Krishna's sweet cowherd pastimes so utterly attracted and enchanted the Vrajavasis, senses that after some time they forgot everything, even that there was any past or future. So all these pastimes, because they're so absorbed in Krishna, so their deep love for Krishna, and they're so fixed on always thinking about Krishna, that these pastimes would come and go. Krishna would repeat these pastimes at different intervals, killing Kṛṣṇa, lifting Govardhan Hill, subduing Kaliya and the Keshi and Ristasura. It's described that the force of their prema ever increasingly grows in both union and separation. Gopa-kumāra is continuing to explain this to this Mathura Brahmin. And he says in text 380, which is the last verse of this chapter, he says, "How much can I say about the greatest object? Oh, the world of Goloka, its multitude of residents, honored by all the worlds, always perceives its greatness. Now I have said enough. To all who lived with the Lord in that abode, I offer my respectful obeisances." So that ends chapter 6. Next, Gopa-kumāra will conclude his discussion in chapter 7 with this Mathura Brahmin. and then bring him into Goloka Vrindavan and meet Krishna. So thank you very much for listening to this video. I hope you return for the conclusion of Gopa-kumāra's story. And then Pariksit, after that, will repeat some verses to his mother, Uttara, from the Srimad Bhagavatam. They're called Bhakta Rasayana verses, a group of very nectarian verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna.
Mm-hmm.